Chapter 9 continued. The transient organ. We steadfastly refuse to face such facts. We avoid them by stubbornly refusing to recognise the speed of change. It makes us feel better to defer the future. Even those closest to the cutting edge of scientific research can scarcely believe the reality. Even they routinely underestimate the speed at which the future is breaking on our shores. Thus, Dr. Richard J. Cleveland, speaking before a conference of organ transplant specialists, announced in January 1967 that the first human heart transplant operation will occur within 5 years. Yet before the same year was out, Dr. Christian Barnard had operated on a 55-year-old grocer named Louis Washkansky, and a staccato sequence of heart transplant operations exploded like a string of firecrackers into the world's awareness. In the meantime, success rates are rising steadily in kidney transplants. Successful liver, pancreas and ovary transplants are also reported. Such accelerating medical advances must compel profound changes in our ways of thinking, as well as our way of caring for the sick. Startling new legal, ethical and philosophical issues arise. What, for instance, is death? Does death occur when the heart stops beating, as we have traditionally believed, or does it occur when the brain stops functioning? Hospitals are becoming more and more familiar with cases of patients kept alive through advanced medical techniques, but doomed to exist as unconscious vegetables. They used to say things like that in 1970. What are the ethics of condemning such a person to death to obtain a healthy organ needed for transplant to save the life of a person with a better prognosis? Lacking guidelines or precedents, we flounder over the moral and legal questions. Ghoulish rumours race through the medical community. The New York Times and Komsomolskaya Pravda, I'm not sure if I pronounced that correctly, but both speculate about our possibility of future murder rings supplying healthy organs for black market surgeons whose patients are unwilling to wait until natural sources have supplied the heart or liver or pancreas they need. In Washington, the National Academy of Sciences, backed by a grant from the Russell Sage Foundation, begins a study of social policy issues springing from advances in the life sciences. At Stanford, a symposium also funded by Russell Sage examines methods for setting up transplant organ banks, the economics of an organ market, and evidences of class or racial discrimination in organ availability. The possibility of cannibalizing bodies or corpses for usable transplant organs, grisly as it is, will serve to accelerate further the pace of change by lending urgency to research in the field of artificial organs. Plastic or electronic substitutes for the heart or liver or spleen. Eventually, even these may be made unnecessary when we learn how to regenerate damaged organs or severed limbs, growing new ones as the lizard now grows a tail. The drive to develop spare parts for failing human bodies will be stepped up as demand intensifies. The development of an economical artificial heart, Professor Liederberg says, is only a few transient failures away. Professor R.M. Kennedy of the bioengineering group at the University of Strathclyde in Glasgow believes that by 1984 artificial replacements for tissues and organs may well have become commonplace. For some organs this date is in fact conservative. Already more than 13,000 cardiac patients in the United States, including a Supreme Court justice, are alive because they carry, stitched into their chest cavity, a tiny pacemaker, a device that sends pulses of electricity to activate the heart. Another 10,000 pioneers are already equipped with artificial heart valves made of Dacron mesh, implantable hearing aids, artificial kidneys, arteries, hip joints, lungs, eye sockets and other parts are all in various stages of early development. We shall, before many decades are past, implant tiny aspirin-sized sensors in the body to monitor blood pressure, pulse, respiration and other functions, and tiny transmitters to emit a signal when something goes wrong. Such signals will feed into giant diagnostic computer centres upon which the medicine of the future will be based. Some of us will also carry a tiny platinum plate and a dime-sized stimulator attached to the spine. By turning a midget radio on and off, we will be able to activate the stimulator and kill pain. Initial work on these pain control mechanisms is already underway at the Case Institute of Technology. Push-button painkillers are already being used by certain cardiac patients. Such developments will lead to vast new bioengineering industries, chains of medical electronic repair stations, new technical professions and a reorganisation of the entire health system. They will change life expectancy, shatter insurance company life tables, and bring about important shifts in the human outlook. Surgery will be less frightening to the average individual, implantation routine. The human body will come to be seen as modular. Through application of the modular principle, preservation of the whole through systematic replacement of transient components, we may add 2 or 3 decades to the average lifespan of the population. Unless, however, we develop far more advanced understanding of the brain than we now have, this could lead to one of the greatest ironies in history. Sir George Pickering, Regius Professor of Medicine at Oxford, has warned that unless we watch out, those with senile brains will form an ever-increasing fraction of the inhabitants of the earth. I find this, he added rather unnecessarily, a terrifying prospect. Just such terrifying prospects will drive us towards more accelerated research into the brain, which in turn will generate still further radical changes in the society. Today, we struggle to make heart valves or artificial plumbing that imitate the original they are designed to replace. We strive for functional equivalence. Once we have mastered the basic problems, however, we shall not merely install plastic aortas in people because their original aorta is about to fail. We shall install specially designed parts that are better than the original, and then we shall move on to install parts that provide the user with capabilities that were absent in the first place. Just as genetic engineering holds out the promise of producing super people, so too does organ technology suggest the possibility of track stars with extra capacity lungs or hearts, sculptors with a neural device that intensifies sensitivity to texture, lovers with sex-intensifying neural machinery. In short, we shall no longer implant merely to save a life, but to enhance it, to make possible the achievement of moods, states, conditions or ecstasies that are presently beyond us. Under these circumstances, what happens to our age-old definitions of humanness? How will it feel to be part protoplasm and part transistor? Exactly what possibilities will it open? What limitations will it place upon work, play, sex, intellectual or aesthetic responses? What happens to the mind when the body is changed? Questions like these cannot be long deferred, for advanced fusions of man and machine called cyborgs are closer than most people suspect.